Hello everyone, it's Miss Waterworth here and welcome to another Year 5-6 English tutorial video. Today we are going to be looking at how to use colons to introduce a list. So colons can be used to introduce a list when the list of items isn't already part of the main sentence. So I'm going to show you an incorrect way of using the colon to introduce a list to try and illustrate to you one of the ways in which lots of people get this wrong. So the sentence says, in my fridge there is a block of cheese, some milk and an apple. Now they've used a colon here to introduce this list of items, but that list of items was already part of my main sentence and there was no need for me to use the colon there. The bit before the colon, doesn't make sense on its own. It says, in my fridge there is. And that doesn't make sense on its own. So that leads me into the 3 tips that you need to remember if you are going to be using a colon to introduce a list. So my first tip, and a real bugbear of mine, is the part before the colon, which is this punctuation mark here, remember, must be a main clause. Now, a big clue if it's a main clause will be that it will make total sense on its own. If I put a full stop there, that sentence would still make sense, okay? So the part before the colon must be a main clause. It must make sense on its own, okay? My tip number 2 is there is no capital letter needed after the colon. Okay, lots of people like to put a capital letter because they feel like it's a new sentence, but there's no need to use a capital letter unless the item would have had a capital letter anyway, like if we were listing the people's names, for example. And then tip 3, the items in your list need to be separated from each other and you can use either a comma or a semicolon. And before the last item in the list, there should be the word and. Okay, now you should use commas in your list if you've got shorter items like the name of a person. So if it just said Emma or Simon, you might use a comma in between those. Or if you wanted to use a semicolon, it would need to be for a longer item or an item that's already got a comma in there. So we wouldn't want to confuse people by using more commas. So if I had lists of things like a large cuddly teddy bear or a fierce hungry looking tiger, they'd already have commas in them, so we would want to use a semicolon in those cases to separate them from each other. Now that's going to be much easier for you to understand if I show you with some examples. So let's have a look at this first sentence. So in this sentence, the list of items has been written as part of the main sentence, so we're going to change it so that we can use a colon to introduce our list. So at the moment it says, in my pocket I found 4 hairbands, a sweet wrapper and a toy car. Okay, so my tip 1 said that the part before the colon must be a main clause, so I need to find a way of rewriting it so that the bit before my colon is going to make sense on its own. I can't just say, in my pocket I found, because that wouldn't make sense on its own. So I'm going to start off with in my pocket. In my pocket, remember the comma, I found, and then before I put my colon, I need to think of a word that's going to represent all 3 of these things. So hairbands, a sweet wrapper and a toy car. So I'm going to say some random things. You might choose to use the words a variety of things or some things. So I'm going to say, in my pocket I found some random things. That's like my team name or my group name for the items I found. Some random things. Then I am going to put in my colon. So I'm going to do that in black so you can see that nice and clearly. So colon there. It doesn't need to be as tall as the whole line. Okay. Then I need to just write out the items that were in my list. Now 4 hairbands, it doesn't need a capital letter. 4 hairbands. I'm going to use a comma in this list because these are short items that haven't got a comma in already. So I'm going to say 4 hairbands, a sweet wrapper, and this is going to be my last item now. So now I'm going to say and a toy car. Okay, and then I'm just going to make sure that you can see very clearly there. I've got my comma and my word and. Okay, so I've gone from in my pocket I found 4 hairbands, a sweet wrapper and a toy car, to in my pocket I found some random things, : 4 hairbands, a sweet wrapper and a toy car. And then I remember to put my full stop at the end because we've completed that sentence now. Let me show you another example. So this is going to be an example with some longer items in our list. So if I can just cover that up like that, hopefully I'm going to write small enough that I fit it in. So this time it says, they had long sharp teeth for tearing flesh, a strong robust jaw for crushing bones, and deadly talons for grip. And I've just spotted that already in that sentence there is a comma missing over here. So I'm just going to put that in now so that no one writes a comment telling me that Miss Waterworth got the grammar wrong. So it says, they had long sharp teeth for tearing flesh, a strong robust jaw for crushing bones, and deadly talons for grip. So just like we did with the other sentence, I need to think of something to go before my colon to introduce this list of things. So the list of things includes lists of sort of features of an animal. So we've got sharp teeth, we've got a strong jaw, and talons for grip. So I'm going to say they had many deadly features, or many lethal features, or I could say they had features which made them deadly predators. Okay, so I'm going to say they had many features which made them, I'm not going to use the word deadly because it's already in my list, so I'm going to use the word lethal predators. And then I'm going to place my colon. So you can see that I've used the words many features which made them lethal predators to explain what all of these 3 things are. So I've placed my colon now, and now I need to write my items. Again, I don't need a capital letter. Now the first item in my list was long sharp teeth for tearing flesh. So that's going to be what I'm going to write first. So I've got long sharp teeth for tearing flesh. Now, this item in my list had already got a comma in it to separate the 2 adjectives. So this time I am going to use a semicolon so that people don't get confused by the commas in the items and the commas that are separating the items. So this time we are using a semicolon. The next item is a strong, robust jaw for crushing bones. So I'm going to write that next. Again, we don't need a capital letter. So a strong, comma, robust jaw for crushing. I think I can squeeze it in. Just crushing bones. And then, unlike when we're using a comma, even before our last item, we need to put another semicolon and then the word and. So it looks a little bit strange, but it helps to separate out our items. So the last item in my list was deadly talons for grip. So again, I don't need a capital letter. and my full stop at the end. So we've now turned that into, they have many features which made them lethal predators, colon. Long, sharp teeth for tearing flesh, semicolon. A strong, robust jaw for crushing bones, semicolon. And deadly talons for grip, full stop. Okay, so they are two examples, one example with the commas and one example with the semicolons to separate our items. So what I am going to show to you now, I've written out 3 lists here. So we've got, from the shops, I bought some soap, 2 tins of beans and a pack of toilet rolls. Okay. On the second list, we've got on the menu, they have chocolate fudge cake, sticky toffee pudding, and a raspberry pavlova, my favourite. And on the last one, it says at the zoo, they had large fierce lions, cute cuddly looking tiger cubs, and giant playful elephants. Okay, what I want you to do is to turn these lists that are part of the main sentences into lists where you can use a colon to introduce it. So just like we did on those other examples, you'll need to rewrite the beginning bit and then put your colon and list the items afterwards, making a decision about whether to use a colon or a semicolon. So I'm going to let you pause the video there so that you can have a look and have a go at rewriting those using the colon. When you unpause it, I'll show you how you might have done it. So hopefully you've been able to have a go at writing out those 3 lists using a colon. So I'm going to now reveal how you might have done this. Now again, like lots of things in English, there isn't one answer. You might have written lots of different things before your colon, but this is what I've written. And we can check whether yours is something similar. So I've changed it to, from the shops I brought, and I changed the items in my list. I summarised them by saying 3 items. Okay, I've placed my colon and I've got a lowercase letter to say some soap, comma, 2 tins of beans and a pack of toilet rolls, full stop. Okay, so your list should look like this. Your bit before the colon might look slightly different. Okay, but make sure that it makes sense on its own. The next one, I've said on the menu, they have 3 mouth-watering desserts. So I've summarised the items in my list by calling them 3 mouth-watering desserts. And then I've got a lowercase c, chocolate fudge cake, comma, sticky toffee pudding, and raspberry pavlova, full stop. So your list should look like this. The bit before the colon might be different, but it should make sense on its own. Okay, and then we've got our last one. It says they have a variety of animals at the zoo, colon, lowercase l, large, comma, fierce lions, semicolon, because we already had a comma here, cute, comma, cuddly looking tiger cubs, semicolon again, then our and, giant, playful elephants, full stop. So again, the list should look like this. We should have used semicolons because of the commas in our items, but your bit before the colon might be slightly different. You might have summarised the items in a slightly different way. Okay, it should make sense on its own, the bit before the colon. So hopefully you've been able to look at that and work out whether your answers are right or wrong. So my suggestion to you now is to go away, look through maybe your bag or a drawer in your bedroom and see if you can write a list using a colon of some of the things that you might find in there. Hopefully now with that explanation, you will hopefully be able to write lists very accurately doing that. If you're still not sure, then feel free to rewatch the video again to pick up on any of the bits that you might have missed. But thank you so much for watching and I'll hopefully see you on another video soon.